So who should we dive in with first? So the question is, let's look at the key market shifts and the challenges that present now to the textile industry, really. And it'd be interesting to talk about it from each different perspective. So obviously with AVA, we've got applications. With Mitesh, we're talking about materials and fabric and innovations and things there. And again, with Marc, gosh, you've got such a wide gamut, really, of change within the industry.
Yeah. I think that's when you look at the market at this moment, everybody's talking green, sustainable, which is all causing some kind of issues for us. How green are we going to be? Is our end or your customer, what is he going to do with the end product? He demands a green product, but then at the end, what does he do with the green product? We have to become a recycling company more, things like that. That is a big demand on us. When we see as Mimaki, we supply inks. The EU is putting more and more bans on certain types of ink, where we say certain products we cannot use in ink anymore. That will have consequences for the type of ink, the material that we're going to use, but also how long will the material last, how long will the ink last. So we have to really focus and look on the fact, hey, what can we do without the substance in this ink? But there's also another demand of we want more speed, we want higher speed, and speed is always subjective, because one person finds 20 square meters high speed and the other one here is 550 square meters is high speed. So it's subjective. But we have big demands for customers saying, hey, we want a high speed or stable in color, stable stability. So we're seeing quite a lot of shift, and I think for sure you will see that in the materials also.
A huge amount of R&D going on with Mimaki as well, though, isn't there? I mean, it's just at the most recent show at EMEA last year, there was kind of like a lab environment showing how the industry is actually really thinking about ink and really thinking about how you remove ink.
Yeah, that was one
at the other end. So neochromato is one of the things that
we call it
proof of concept at ITMA last year.
So we showed something on polyester with dye sublimation, where we'd actually take the dye sublimation ink out of the polyester, and it will actually completely remove the ink. Your t-shirt is going to be white again, and you could actually reprint again. Now this was a concept, because if you think about it, what about if I have a roll 64 inch at 100 meter that I want to de-ink? I would need a machine for this to do that. So we're in the phase of concepting and saying, okay, is it possible? Yes, I can do it on a single t-shirt very easy with a heat transfer press.
Just lift it off.
Lift it off and done. And I'm using a sort of chemical. Okay, there we go again. How green is this chemical? Well, reusing the fabric is for sure more sustainable than throwing away the fabric.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but every company in the room has to start thinking about that, don't they? Whether they're working in decor, sportswear or fashion, the net zero, the carbon footprint of your products is all becoming part of legislation in the very, very near future. So it has to be measured. It's almost like we now need kind of carbon accountants, don't we? Really, for the future. There's a whole new job spec arriving there soon for companies, I think.
We're at Drupa, one of the biggest show on not so per se on textile, but on print and paper. And you have companies, I've been approached by many companies every day, that they can say, I can give you the carbon footprint for your machines. And that is a whole new industry from companies where they are saying, okay, and you guys probably have to do sooner or later, you have to come up with the CO2 footprint of your product that you're supplying to your customer, which all includes my machine, the Mimaki machine, has a CO2 footprint. Yeah. The material that you're going to use has a CO2 footprint, and it all has to come together at the end where you say, this is the amount of CO2 footprint. Personal opinion, maybe we're going a little bit too far. We have to become more green and sustainable, but it's quite pushing.
It is, and you're trying to steer a huge juggernaut, aren't you? Really, and a massive industry, and shoehorn it into all of this litigation with very, very, very little time for the industry to align with that. It's very, very difficult. But I think it's really interesting to hear from Mimaki how much R&D is going on in the background really, in order to sustainability being one of the biggest, and all of the aspects of sustainability, I think, is one of the biggest issues that all of our industries face, and especially now when, you know, the talk on-demand production. To produce on demand, you know, you have to have standardized everything within that supply chain. Otherwise, all you do is you create waste on demand. And I think, you know, that's why it's so key to have all three players here and chat this through. Mitesh, I know you've been doing a massive, and have been for a long time, a massive amount of work on materials, new fibres, new fabrics. Duncan, I think this is a really great moment to pass those samples around, which I just adore, really. So we've got all sorts of things in here that Mitesh will talk about. All of the things that are coming through. We've got soya, coffee. You've got weaves. You're actually weaving and playing with these things. So could you tell us about the challenges that you face in a day-to-day, and the benefits, new materials? What does the industry need, and what's everyone calling from Premier Digital?
So just following on from what Marc has said, I think it's fair to say that everybody in the supply chain has to have some kind of contribution towards sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
Now, from our point of view as a fabric supplier, we're not manufacturing the fabric ourselves, but we're innovating and looking at new fibres, new techniques, and also changing our product range so there's more and more eco and sustainable fabrics in there.
Yeah.
And that goes from organic cottons, recycled polyesters. Those types of products are now more.
Well, that's what we all had, isn't it? 4 or 5 years ago, we basically had rPET, polyester, and recycled organic kind of hybrid cotton. That was it. You know, you fast forward 2 years and look what we've got in the room in little plastic bags. It's incredible, the speed of fibre innovation, really.
We're also going a bit beyond that.
Yep.
So the mills that we work with, we have long-standing relationships with. We call them partner mills. We have vested interest in them. We do a lot of R&D and development work with them. So it's also about the mills themselves and how they're producing the fabrics. So 2 of our partner mills that we work with have zero discharge facility. So it's not just about the end product that they're producing, but it's also what they're doing with their waste material. Okay, so I was fortunate back in 2018 to go and visit one of these mills in India and saw it firsthand, and what they were doing was recycling all their effluent. So basically they were separating the water out from the sediments and recycling the water and reusing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know there's been a lot of controversy about how much water goes into producing a cotton fabric, but even if the mills are actively pushing more towards their role in sustainability, that also has a good backstory about the products.
Absolutely. Nobody questions how much water is in a beef burger,
No.
do they?
No.
Really, you know, it's an analogy, but it's true. You know, there are so many things that we just consume on a day-to-day basis, and sometimes the media and the marketing, they focus on a certain thing, don't they, about textile within the textile area. It's very important.
So we've chosen to work with the partner mills that can back up all of this as well. Everything that we're buying, we can safeguard with certification, accreditations. The industry are now demanding this. Our customers, printers, and their customers, being the end users, are being a lot more demanding in terms of what information is going to back up the product.
Yep.
And like Marc says, you know, there's a lot coming on the inside, and I'm sure that Mimaki face the same questions and demands that, you know, everything needs to be certified. So if we can do that from a fabric perspective, and the manufacturers, machine manufacturers, ink manufacturers can do that, then that's following a chain of custody, and that's what the customers are demanding at the end.
I think it's also really important that the community, the textile community themselves, demand and ask those questions of the suppliers that they're using, really. And if you're not getting the depth of knowledge that you need, it's time to move on, isn't it? Because you're not future safe. I think so often people have no understanding of the amount and depth of innovation that you guys are doing worldwide with those mills, because you have such a long heritage with them. Been working with them for goodness how many years?
Oh, decades.
It's a long time. Yeah, millions and millions and millions of meters. Yeah, and also I think interesting as well, serving both communities. So you're serving the analog community with large volumes, and bridging that to the digital community too. Really, yeah, and moving with lots of innovations in that too. You know. Fabrics that are coated, fabrics that are uncoated. You've got fabrics over here that are polyester on one side and cotton on the other, which we'll dive into a little bit later. Just really, really clever innovations. That's great. Well, thank you very much. So once we've got the fabric, we've got technologies to print it with, we then have to control it, don't we? So I think AVA, colour, get colour wrong. Anyone in here that works at mass volume knows that one just slightly 10-20% off delta and you've got a huge pile of waste. The stock doesn't match the photography, everything's just doesn't meet anybody's expectation in the supply chain. So could you tell us how AVA helps and what the challenges presented for your customers, how AVA has adapted to those really?
Yeah, so anybody that's used AVA will know that we do colour management. So we have device profiles, we calibrate the monitors, we calibrate the printers per substrate as well. So we can aid the sustainability that customers are calling for, because what we'll do is we'll profile, we'll make an ICC profile for a specific substrate, and that profile is then displayed on the screen. So when you're colouring your design, you know, the colour that you see on the screen is going to come out of the printer accurately. So you're not doing, you know, 10-20 strike-offs to hit the colour that you actually tried to pick. So, you know, another thing as well that, you know, we specialise in is colour separation. So that, you know, this design, for example, you know, it's not just an image, it's not a CMYK image, it's been separated into spot colours. So I can say, okay, this area here, I want it to be this specific blue, and things like that. So we're always developing tools to help control the colours, which in turn then helps customers like yourselves to you know, be more green and save time as well. You don't want to be spending hours trying to hit the right
No,
colours.
you don't. And I suppose like with the growth of e-commerce and everything, presentations become really important.
Yeah.
Really
So,
important
yeah,
for
we
the
have,
industry.
You know, talking about on-demand print, you know, we have some customers who'll put some colours on the screen so that their customers can then go and pick a design and colour it just by going on the internet and picking the colours. But you want to make sure that those colours are going to come out of the printer accurately, because that customer's just seeing that design on the screen, and then, you know, if it comes out from the printer differently than it is on the screen, then, well, that you're going to have to reprint it, aren't you? So
Or return it.
yeah, and like you say, visualization as well. So you know, mapping is a big thing at the moment. You know, getting your design, putting it on a bedding or on a wall or on a skirt or something, so that you can visualize how that's going to look before you even go to production. And then you can gauge how much of it you need to print as well. You know, how popular is this design? Yeah, so
It's incredible, I think, what's happened in the design studio as well. If you look at the role of a designer 15, 20 years ago, you know, very much on the drawing board, you might be using software, you might be using technology, but you wouldn't be interacting with production at the level that we interact as design. It interacts with production now, setting ICC profiles, setting coloured management. You know, all of that would have been another department, wouldn't it? Roll the clock back. In some companies, it probably still is. But rolling the clock back, that would have been an analogue manual function. Now it's a digital function. So again, all part of the workflow, building continually that workflow as we move forward. Very interesting. Okay. Anybody any questions on that first question, or anything to add for now? We can come back to skip to these at the end. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Right, let's talk about seamless manufacturing and the latest innovations. Okay. And dive in there for both software and materials. So again, I think we're really interesting to start with Marc. Could you tell us, like, from Mimaki's perspective, if you were to roll back on technology, how is technology, the what you can't see in these machines, how much has that changed just in the last few years?
Well, I think basically you have on the printer nowadays, you have so much more controls involved. One of the things is, you know, the nozzles failing. Very, very popular in printers. If you don't clean them enough, they fail. As a print operator, you know, you start run. If you don't check your printer, you might miss out on a piece of fabric. You have some color missing. So technology has made it possible to do, for example, in Mimaki printers, do an automatic nozzle check. So if it fails, the printer will stop, will start to clean and continue to print. Well, especially for those people that are running overnight, want to produce overnight, that is vital. You don't want to come in the morning saying, okay, hey, I would actually have to reprint right now. So there's all kinds of features and development in hardware possible. Not only Mimaki, you see that on a lot of brands.
Yeah, across the board, yeah.
In things
Yeah.
for production
Yeah.
to support the technology and support the product in a way that we have a decent product that you can use right away.
It's interesting because AI, everyone talks about AI, but there's so much AI everywhere already, we're just not aware of it, we just don't talk about it.
Yeah, no, I think that is becoming more and more. You know, we have a simple AI tool that we use for translation. You know, as Mimaki being a Japanese company, we have to translate quite a lot. It's all driven by AI now, right now. We just educate the AI tool, and the next time it will use the same sentences and things like that for translation. You know, you have AVI and you have to do different languages.
For the SDKs and things.
It's very simple to do it, Ryan. Nowadays you put up a question at ChatGPT and it will come back with something. And we were talking about that yesterday.
Yeah, we were, yeah, we did dive into that, yeah.
We still have to do fact checking if the content, but it is so easy to create a piece of content for you, and I think that is going to help technology everywhere.
I think the kind of drop on that word, actually, easy. And I think when you look at the industry as a whole, simplifying the whole supply chain, the whole nuances of the workflow of the supply chain, I would say is absolutely key. And I think if you were to roll back 5 years, look forward with Mimaki, operator functionality, everything within the machinery is much more simplistic. The navigation, everything is to help the operator to work at a faster on-demand speed, really, with the machine taking up as much as it can possibly do automatically. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. And also the fact that we in your introduction, we talked about the people, finding the people in the industry. So we don't have skilled operators right away out of the box, where we can say, okay, here's a machine, go run it. So the more simple the machine is, the more simple the software is in front, the more easy it is to work with, the more easier it is to get these people to work right away. And I think that helps on all levels of where we're doing the job, whether it's the software or the hardware of the printer or the software that drives the printer. How easy is how.
Anybody in the room that's done profiling, I mean, just look at how that's changed. I mean, my goodness, it used to take days feeding in every single little box over and over and over and over again to build all the profiles. And now you've got, robotic spectrophotometers scanning around. Just leave it to it, just let it go. It'll do it all on its own. It'll do it a few times, but it'll also connect with the machine.
Yeah, and then look at the fact how many people are still not profiling.
Oh, that's the Wild West.
That are not doing anything on their color input, color output. They just
That's
use
a lot.
whatever is available.
I come across that all the time. It really is the Wild West out there. And you just think, well, how can you not be controlling colour? How can not every Monday or depending on how much you're printing, how can you not have standards in place to check the functionality of those machines?
I think it comes to the fact when you talk about branding and you have to print certain colors, then you have to start doing your profiling. If you do a one-off and it is a little bit red, who cares? Your customer accepts that this is the red that he's going to get. No profiling involved or basic profile. But for sure, if you're going to do that certain branding of certain colors, you cannot do it without profiling.
No. Perhaps this is a good point to bring Mitesh in, actually, because one of the issues of the past was very much towards batching. Really, between batches, between fabrics, having to profile all of those things. The technology now must have really helped, and also, how do you combat that for the industry as well?
I think this is a slightly different question for us because
Okay.
we're not in a mechanical
that's right,
space. We're providing a product that's going on the machines and being printed with software that customers are essentially going to profile first. So from a fabric perspective, we have to maintain continuity, so that's really important. So finishers that we work with will have modern kits which will actually measure the differences between each batch, so very important for us to produce batch-to-batch continuity. We have measures in place. Our QC department will have measures in place to check all of this.
Yep.
Okay. From a print perspective, we're not printers, but we have to have a certain degree of knowledge of printers and the processes so we can help the customers.
Yeah.
Okay, so For it to become seamless for the customer, they have to also be able to run our fabrics on their machines, be able to profile if they are profiling,
Yep.
but also understand how the fabric is going to run through the machine, and we have to have that knowledge to share with the customers for it to become seamless for the customer rather than seamless for us.
Yeah, it's just this knowledge share, this circle of knowledge, isn't it, that has to move around really. It's almost like, we could talking about it before, it's a bit like a relay race in the supply chain, isn't it? But we used to pass on bad patterns in the past, and then once it had gone, it was somebody else's problem, it was somebody else's mountain. But I think now, at every single point of production, you have to pass on the perfect product, wherever you are sat. And if you don't do that, you just create waste, and you're just creating on-demand chaos, basically.
Yeah, I think if we tick all the boxes when it comes to continuity, then that's reducing the amount of reprints, wastage. It will bring down rejection levels at customers. It's a textile product, so textile products, there are going to be imperfections, there are going to be certain
Of
things
course.
within the fabric that's going to cause issues.
That's the misconception of textiles, isn't it? Everybody in the room understands that, because we all work in textiles. But from the outside in, people look at the textiles and space and think, oh, I can jump in there. That's, I can, as an entrepreneur, I can get into that space. But there's quite a sharp learning curve in the textile space, which by sharing knowledge, we can shortcut really.
Correct,
Yeah, definitely. Natalie, could you add into that conversation, really?
Yeah, I think in terms of talking about, on-demand digital print, and we're talking about, that red, someone's doing a one-off print and they want 2 meters of it, and it's okay if that red's a bit, it doesn't really matter. But they might come back in 2 months' time and go, actually, can I have 200 meters of it?
That's right.
So profiling and being able to back match to that colour is really important. Which is where your profiling comes in. And knowing your limitations and being able to collaborate like this, knowing your suppliers, knowing the limitation of that fabric and how that ink's going to print on that fabric, and it's all really important.
I think one of the things that doesn't get discussed a lot either is parallel sourcing, because quite a number of customers will maybe trial designs, trial patterns, UK, onshore, or even in Europe, but once it shifts to a certain meterage, they will send it out to the Far East. And you've then got patterns that are designed for digital that have to be crafted into analog and become screens at high resolution. And the other way round too, really, utilising technology to make that process seamless, so that you might be a company that's sampling using digital technologies, but you're going to go offshore for meterage. AVA does a lot of work there, doesn't it, to make that fine-tune colour in that space, because in a digital space you've got 16.7 million colours, and it makes no difference how fast the machine prints. Okay, honing that down quite often to 8, max 10 these days really takes some skill.
Yeah, so with AVA, even in terms of like your digital printers, if you've got a small digital printer and then you want to do production on a bigger digital printer, knowing the limitations, one might have slightly different inks to the other one. So, they might do digital samples on a smaller scale, and then they'll know then the limitations, they'll know what the colour's going to be like, and then, put it in production onto a bigger machine. But yeah, we also have PCM, which is production colour management, so that you can try and match your digital samples to your production, which is like doing a fingerprint of your analog printing. Really, it's like making a profile for analog.
In reverse. Yeah, so important really, as we gradually build that gap, which is quite a good point, Marc, to bring in those statistics we were talking about yesterday.
Yeah.
Could you share us a few really interesting stats about the industry and where we actually are?
Yeah. It was more, we had the figures of, okay, how much are we actually printing digital? Because we're all in this digital world, and we think, oh yeah, it's a big percentage, 10%. 2022 was 8.9%. That is what we're producing digitally. All the rest still analog.
Yeah.
In 2030, it goes up to 20%. But also the production goes up.
Yeah.
So it's still equally. So there's still a big chunk of that is still produced in an analog way. And of course, when we talk about high production, high runs, that is mostly done in analog way. Digital is a good replacer, but for really high productions, people would still go to analog.
Yeah.
But you see that number I think textile, but also we talk about wall decoration,
Yeah.
you know, wallpaper. A lot of people think, oh, you know, nowadays that's all digital because all the amount that I can choose, there's still a lot of analog, which probably is also causing some kind of problems, you know, being analog going to digital, color-wise, things
Yeah.
like that. Can we still do the same colors? Can we produce less of this roll? Instead of 100 rolls, we only want to have 2 rolls, but it has to be the same color. So it's moving more to digital, but we're still a small part of it.
It's interesting where it's moving to as well, isn't it? That how that marketplace breaks down, how that marketplace is evolving, and it's not evolving perhaps as we thought it would. But for example, you know, as global affluence continues to grow, people who didn't have the I suppose income to spend on what the West has, you know, that's what's happening. So when you look at machinery, for example, textile machinery that's going out to India or Bangladesh, Vietnam, Cambodia, wherever it is, it might be single pass machinery or it might be farms of smaller machineries, you know, the tigers, for example, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What used to happen was that production was predominantly, that analog production was predominantly for the West. Now it's for their own markets.
Yeah.
You know, I've spoken to a number of customers and clients out in the Far East, and they are investing in single pass machinery, digital machinery, and I'll say, oh, great, and you know, how much of that is going to come back to the West? Are you doing that for this reason or for that reason? No, it's for their own markets.
Well, I think you see customers looking at different technologies, you know, and they choose a technology that fits for their product.
Yep.
You know, we used to have maybe only one brand inside your shop, one brand printer, because that was doing the job. But now I think now customers like you are more selecting, okay, what type of application do I need to run,
Yep.
and which printer, which brand, either a Mimaki or anything else,
Yeah.
would fit my needs to produce this kind of materials that I need to do.
And to give you that pivot as well, that efficiency, it's quite interesting what happened during lockdown, really. If you look at a lot of the print companies, just taking the UK as a sample, really, the ones that were successful here were the ones who already had digital technologies and they could pivot at speed. It's all about on-demand manufacturing, regardless of scale, is about agility and efficiency, isn't it? It doesn't matter whether you're producing 500 metres a week in your factory or 5,000, 500,000. It's all about agility and being as efficient and sustainable as possible.
Yeah, well, that comes back to the first part, the sustainable.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, where people say, okay, how green am I going to produce? But I think overall, the whole of Europe in COVID time supplies were not there because they were coming from the Far East. We probably had the same issues. Our printers are built in Japan, Asia, so we had the same issue of getting printers. So we had to look at customers to be more flexible in a way that they could still run their business. You know, look at all the stickers, labels that were produced in COVID time. There were a lot of companies they had their best years ever.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
Just because of that.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Coming back into the question, Mitesh, one of the things on innovations linking direct to materials as well, which I think is really important. Speaking about different machines and different inks and different technologies, you know, that leads into the space of pigment in seamless as well. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Trappist later. Mitesh, you've also got, you know, fabrics over there. The one that sticks in my mind all of the time is the one on the far right. I can't remember the name. Is it called? Misa, I nearly got it. Which is polyester on one side and cotton on the other. It's that kind of hybrid, exactly. Mary's face, like, how can you do that? But it's that kind of hybrid innovation that the industry is now demanding. Because if you have technology wherever you are, you could print that with pigment on one side, or you can print it with dye sub on the other. I mean, you might duplex print it, on doubtful, but it just gives you that functionality within your print space to pivot, really.
Yeah, there are products like the Misa in our range. It's not a new technology. We had a product about 3-4 years ago, much heavier fabric, which was essentially the same. It was polyester on one side, cotton on the reverse, and it's not a bonded fabric. It's woven in such a way that you've got polyester threads on one and cotton on the reverse. The idea behind it was that you've got a side that you can sublimate onto and get a very bright, vibrant print.
Yeah.
And if it's going to go in for garment end use, then you've got the cotton field against your skin. the fabric weight we got wrong initially, and that's where MESA came into it. So we have a small number of fashion fabrics in our range, predominantly very lightweight, up to about 100 GSM. So what we wanted to do was have a top fashion weight fabric, 150 GSM, and that's where this product came into it.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's become a very, very popular product for us.
I can
purely
imagine,
because
yeah.
we've got-
Opens up so many different applications, doesn't it?
Correct, yeah. So it's ticked all the boxes for what we needed to do. So we've got a really good print side,
Mm-hmm.
and then the cotton fill on the back. But like you say, you can actually print on the reverse side. We have done test prints by pre-treating it, pigment printing it. So it is a dual-purpose fabric. So what we're trying to do is we have our, what would say, a standard range, but there are a number of products where they will have a dual purpose.
Yeah.
Even fabrics, one fabric which will have two different sides, printable sides with two different textures on each side.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nothing stays the same, doesn't it?
No.
Although for many, many years we just printed on poplin and Panama.
Correct.
Didn't we, in Jersey? And now we have all of these new things coming through, and this is a bigger conversation for another day. But you've also got lots of different biomaterials with catalysts and a million one different things. And then, how is ink going to sit on coffee? How is on those new hybrid fabrics? There's a whole new testing platform out there, which I'm sure will all have challenges and find the benefits of those in the future too.
We
Yeah,
like
so
to
much.
play about with some of the blends as well. So
Yeah.
Sublimation printers will always say that it's got to be a polyester fabric they print on, but why not make it a little bit more interesting? So we've developed fabrics, we've innovated by adding other fibres into it, so linen, for example.
Yeah.
So small amount of linen in a polyester will change the characteristics of the product,
But not affect the colour too
but not
much.
affect the colour.
Right.
Okay, it
Right.
actually gives it more of a natural rustic look.
Yeah.
So it's not just about a plain white fabric they can print on. Why not have a change of
Yeah.
colour on the base fabric, which once it's printed will produce a completely different type of print?
So interesting. Marc, let's talk about Trappist, because you've gone to a whole nother level here in that using pigment inks, which pigment inks are a big part of the future too, as like dye sub, they're pretty much waterless. But using pigment so you can print onto cellulose and synthetic, but you're not printing onto.
No.
You've taken transferring
Yeah.
away from sublimation to transferring. Can you
Yeah.
tell us all about Trappist and how that works?
So it looks very much on a sublimation process. One of the things where we're commenting on during FESPA, we had the printer there and we had a calendar there, and we actually should have put a big sign on it saying this is not sublimation, because a lot of people pass by and they see a printer and they see a calendar and they think, oh, this is just dye sublimation. We're printing on a white paper and we're getting fabric out of the machine. Oh, it's nothing special, that's dye sublimation. So, and it actually looks, when you look at the process, it's more or less the same thing. The big difference is here with Trappist, it's not dye sublimation ink, it's pigment ink, but we're not sublimating. So because of the dye sub, when you heat up dye sub, it becomes a gas and it penetrates the material. Yeah. With Trappist, we don't penetrate the material, we'll transfer on top of the material. The biggest benefit is any natural fiber without a pre-coating. So I don't need any cotton with a coating, I don't need any linen, I don't need any silk with coating, I can just use that in my calendar. There's, let's say, two limitations. My release of the ink inside the calendar is a minimum of 160 degrees. Now, most of the fabrics are good with that. I had one customer said, I have some recycled material that can only stand 130 degrees. I said, you cannot use it. The ink will not release from the paper. Yeah? So you go above, you go 160, 180, 200. We used your eco cotton, your organic cotton, for example, to make a bag, and we just use that cotton as it is and produced on it. We print on the printer. The benefit is also you get very vibrant colors because you're sitting on top and you're not penetrating. And basically it is a very simple system because you use a printer and a calendar, and that's it. Then you're done. Yeah, I have to say it is a special calendar because we're transferring. We have to apply quite a lot of pressure. So therefore you cannot use your regular calendar, but you need one between 6 and 8 bar, because we're really pressing the image onto
But
the
that
fabric.
bar can be reduced. So if you have the latest generation,
Yeah.
it can be used as a standard calendar.
Well,
can it?
Well, the thing is that both, there's two big ones in the calendar of like Cleveland and Monte
Yeah.
Antonio. They have designed a machine that has the 6 to 8 bar. So you cannot use your normal calendar. You have to go to the high pressure. But the benefit is the calendar can also be used for your normal
Great. Yeah.
dye sublimation
Right.
work.
That's
So
great.
you're not specific only buying it for this process, but you can do a normal dye sub also.
Okay. It's really interesting. It's so interesting to hear how every single point of manufacture, we're moving towards one language. We're moving towards seamless manufacturing, and really collaboration. I think between everybody within the supply chain.
Yeah. I
No
think-
silos. The silos have to disappear, don't they, for us to
No,
move at speed
I
here?
think with Trappist we work with a company called Golden Over. They're very famous for their transfer paper, their Jetex paper. And
I've been around their facility actually, and you would think when you see them making transfer paper, you think, wow, that's a lot of water. But actually, when you then go into their refill tray, everything that they do, they treat the water as gold,
yeah,
and they are so careful with it.
we basically say in our whole presentation about Trappist, it is nearly waterless.
Yep.
Nearly waterless means our system is waterless, but the production of the paper is nearly waterless. And like you said, they do a lot of recycling. It is never going to be 100%. It's maybe 95 or 99, but they always lose some water. And I think the one step also, the big step here is the amount. And you know that better than me, but the amount of what you need to do is to pre-coat your material, steam, wash, all those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically no need anymore. We just buy the roll, put it in the calendar, and off you go.
So many applications. Every time something moves incrementally, lots of new applications appear, don't they? Really,
Yeah.
some of them take traction in the marketplace, and others don't really. And so some of them, like dye sub, goes on to continue its growth and its trajectory of that and pigment within the frame of maybe 9 or 10% total digital application really for our inkjet technologies in the whole marketplace. It's really interesting to watch how it's changing, how the materials are changing, but most importantly how it is becoming seamless, and that depth of transparency and traceability between every single part of the process really, and how important software is underpinning that. But you working closely with Mimaki, working closely, Mitesh, everybody has to have that knowledge, not the depth of knowledge, but they have to have that understanding when they're going to pass that baton on to the next part of the supply chain of what the expectation is, what the specification is of that product at its next point of contact. As a side note, you don't use any water at all in AVA, do you?
Only for making coffee and tea. We have got a shower now. I think it's important as well to just to add, support, ongoing support to help your customers. Like, it's great for us all to collaborate, but if you've got a problem when you're printing, or we all need to be on hand to help. So just to help it more, speed up things and know that you're not on your own.
Have access to those experts, really, people that really understand your space in all of the partners that you choose, I think, for your digital journey, whichever application that digital journey is moving across to, you have to have access to those specialists, don't you, really, in order to make it seamless, and also, I guess, make that seamless journey software and AI bound as possible. So you've got the right people in the right space at the right time, really. I think workflow automation is also something we need to talk about, and I think that moves us nicely onto the next question of how to scale production, really. So perhaps we could talk about how AVA have helped with workflow automation in a manufacturing perspective.
Well, AVA is helping you to be seamless in your workflow in general, because you can take, a lot of you already know, but you can go from scratch. You can start designing from scratch in AVA, and then you can put it in repeat, you can do your separation, you can do your colourways, you can print it digitally, and then you can go to analog, so you can do the whole thing in AVA. But yeah, we have been working on automation. We offer pallet buttons now, so if you've got something that you do every day, you know, and you don't want to do 1,000 steps, you can just click a button now and it'll do certain things.
Right, it's almost like batching. It like puts all of those commands together.
Yeah.
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 That's
Yeah,
great,
so-
which is what's happening behind the scenes in the Mimaki technology as well, isn't it? Again, all of that things. Workflow being really, really important, of course, because you've got this huge growth of e-commerce. And we looked at this before, you know, the e-commerce space grew, I think, I can't remember, 10 years growth during lockdown. It was absolutely insane and it hasn't dropped, it just continues its ascent. We've just fast forwarded. And, you know, this is a big issue, I suppose, for you guys as well. You know, when you're selling mail order as well, people are looking at things online. You have to meet that expectation. I was talking to somebody the other day, you know, the digital twin didn't exist 2 or 3 years ago. Now we have to create that digital twin of that product, whether it is a sportswear garment like the one that we've created next to Mitesh's friend here on the right, created by the team here at Mimaki for sportswear. Very, very important, yeah, that we move forward with sustainable technologies. Yeah. All right, that's great. Any other comments on scaling and production, Marc?
Well, I think especially with software, it's very important if you have a printer fleet that is mixed.
Yeah.
You know, because if you all run Mimaki printers, basically, you know, you have our software and you can run with it and you have your profiles and things like that. But what happens if you have another party in there, another company, and you know, you have an Epson, you have an HP, or maybe even a different technology? And I think that's where the software comes very much in place to control the whole workflow and say, okay, the color that I'm producing with this and this particular customer wants it on latex, but he also wants it on textile from Mimaki. How am I able to match these colors in the right way? Textile, you know, sometimes your coating or whatever is slightly off. You know, it's not so white. You get it a little bit more yellowish. Well, your colors that we print are going to react on it. They might look a little bit darker, they might look a little bit lighter, so you have to calibrate things, you have to linearize things. One brand is easy, you use the same software. But what about the multi-brand? And I think that's where the workflow comes in place.
Even 2 printers that are the same are going to have limitations and differences.
Yeah.
We've seen that often.
No, you're right, because if we build a printer, it's between a spec between 0 and 5. And they're all inside the same specs. But then if you look at it, the color might be slightly different.
But they all have personalities, don't they? They have they age.
Yeah.
We have customers that name their printers.
Yeah, we did. In the nursery, yeah. Which is great, really, because they are such an important part of the system, aren't they? Most definitely. That's great. Okay, cool. Let's move on. We're slightly over time. Are we okay? We're okay? We're all right, fine. Anybody want to add anything else then about how scaling production is so important from that e-com all the way through really full? I think from my perspective as well, I'd like to kind of add in the whole nuance of companies like perhaps, you know, companies like Gelato, companies who are empowering the print community with software that enables all of the print hubs worldwide. So you're connecting the field. You've got lots and lots of printers out there producing different products for different markets. But when we talk about nearshore and onshore production, we kind of think about it, we're doing that yourself. Why do it yourself? Why not we just become much, much more collaborative and much more organised about it? And, you know, using software again, which is what Gelato is, you basically, you know, 85% of their products in 2022 were printed close proximity to production. They were printed as close as possible from origin to consumer, rather than printing them in the UK or here, there and everywhere, and then sending them, coming back to the carbon issue again, really. So important.
I think where that education comes in plan, very much like how are you teaching your operators to do the same thing in the UK than in Spain or Italy or America. Yeah. So they all use their same setup, they all produce in the same way, they all check their printers in the same way. Standardization,
isn't it?
Yeah, without that it's not going to work.
The whole supply chain, everything falls down. If you don't choose the right partners across all of this, partners that you can trust, I think trust, traceability and transparency are probably the biggest 3 keywords, really, aren't they, of the next decade? really. If a customer or your client, your supplier won't share that information, they haven't got the back office, or they're not, preparing for the future like you guys have been doing, Mitesh, for how long have you been doing that? Just from the transparency side of things, that's all going to be there for your customers whenever they're ready to pull that information and to work on their carbon footprints. It's going to be there.
Yeah, I think for us, when we have a global customer base who are using different machines, different platforms,
Yeah.
we have to ensure that our fabrics are universally accepted. We
Yes.
know that there's different machinery, different inks. Our pre-treatment needs to be universally accepted, so you're going to get different results from each machine.
Yeah.
Certain colours might not be as good as certain colours on machines.
Yeah.
We prefer to do our own testing in real life situations with our customers and
Yes.
see firsthand rather than being subjective. So over many years we've done lots and lots of R&D and testing on different machines,
All over
different platforms,
yeah.
different ink sets, and built up a database. So we know that we can help the customers when they've got issues, and it may be fabric related, it may be software, it may be machine, but as you say, collaboratively, somebody could assist the customer. At the end result is what the customer wants off the machine. Okay, so between us, we've got to be able to assist and guide the customers and educate the customers.
Yeah, and grow the industry.
Grow the industry.
Yeah, and try and bring, as we were talking about earlier, bring the next generation in to learn all of this and pass all of this knowledge on, really. It's so important. Last question, preparing for the future beyond 2024. And this is an open question to everyone that's sat in the room as well. What are customers asking for, and how should the textile industry adapt for the years ahead, really? What, if you had to summarise, what would you say, Mitesh?
Data.
Data.
Yeah.
Data is the new gold.
Data behind each product, yes.
Yeah.
We've seen that over the last couple of years. There's more and more demand for customers and the end users asking for data to back up the product, whether that be accreditation, certification. So for the last couple of years, Ellen, my colleague, has been working.
Not seen her for a couple of years. Where's she been? Has she been doing in the back?
Back office, putting together a database.
Yeah.
Just the more information that we can give the customers, right from country of origin,
Yes.
commodity codes, accreditation, certifications, testing criteria. Our printer customers are well versed to engage with their customers and give them the data that we want. Again, we call it chain of custody, so if that can be passed down from ourselves to the printers down to their customers, the end users, probably a brand at the end of it, okay, then that gives more validation to that product itself. So it's not just about a product that we're selling, it's the information behind it now.
Yeah, it's that input and output, and allowing the designer and the product designer right at the very beginning to create in a circular format, really having access to all of that knowledge and understanding that knowledge, which again comes back to education and how important it is that the textile industry opens itself up as well and allows the academic sector into the industry so they can learn all of these. You're never going to learn all of it in an hour, 2 hour day visit or whatever. But the nuances of production, the back office, those years of heritage that you guys have, that everybody in the room has, really, we do need to pass that on.
It's the same. As an
Knowledge
individual,
share.
I myself, my colleagues, they are not going to know every piece of that jigsaw.
No.
But within our company, within our team, if we can, between us, if we can pool all that knowledge and share that knowledge with the customers, there's always going to be somebody there.
It's almost the
that
end
being
of job
trying to
description, isn't it, really? Modern life is about multitasking and just saying, okay, I'm happy to learn that, I'm happy to onboard that, because the learning journey is so fast. You can't close the door and say, not in my CV, I'm not doing that. That just doesn't work anymore, does it? Not at all. Marc, what would you say, preparing for the future for the print industry?
Well, I think, if you look at Mimaki, we're going to keep on developing printers that are needed for you as a customer in any form or shape. And that might be small and fast, or it might be big and a little bit slower.
Yeah.
All kinds of different things.
Yeah.
And I think what becomes for the next year very vital for us, what rules and regulations are going to be there on this. In Europe, it's slightly different than the US, for example.
Every continent's completely different.
US, they
Yeah,
don't really care so much. We were talking about that, but bio-organic, I don't care, give me something that is cheaper. Which is completely different in Europe. Well, some parts of Europe are the same. They don't care. You know, eastern side are a little bit less there. But I think we have to look at that kind of product, that kind of applications. For us as Mimaki, the thing is we're building printers, but the most important is the application that we show.
Yes.
Because the application sells our product. If you see as a customer something really nice and you're interested, and you know this is this technology that comes to a Mimaki printer, that's what we basically need to do. Because by itself, the printer you might find it that looks nice, but that doesn't sell a printer. You know, the printer sells because what it does and what it serves you. So I think especially development on sublimation, but also on pigment, trapeze, but also DTF, the direct to film, is a huge industry.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, that's, you know, the success that you've had with the D2F just in the last year.
Yeah.
2 new machines and a really seriously disrupting garment decoration.
Yeah.
And not just garment decoration for what we would have all thought t-shirts, really, you know, for promotional workwear, for shoes, for sportswear, for bags, for just so many applications, really, for D2F.
And I think especially
Direct to film.
Yeah, when you look at direct to film, the investment that people have to do is rather low. So even, you know, you could start from your home and start a small company and start with DTF, which is really an approach that a lot of people have onboarded and says, you know, we're going to do that. And I think what our benefit is, we had a lot of the Chinese manufacturers in here. A lot of customers were complaining about the fact about stability of these kind of printers, and there is now a brand A available that they can have with a dealer backup channel.
It's
also.
trust again, isn't it?
Yeah,
Just comes
it
back
is,
to trust.
it is.
Definitely. Yeah, that's great. Natalie, AVA's vision for the future.
Our vision for the future. Well,
Carry on doing what you do so well.
Yeah, continued support, being able to give the customers what they want. When a customer says, you know, there's a new printer on the market, how does this work with the inks, and how are the colours going to be? It's knowing that we can interface with it, it's knowing what the results are going to be like, and it's knowing that any problems that do come up we can help resolve. So we're just going to carry on doing what we do. But just to come back to education as well, and on-demand digital print,
Yeah.
but it is. I work in the education team at AVA. I'm quite passionate about it, and it is a bit worrying that, you know, textiles isn't really being studied as much now in the UK. A lot of textile courses are being paused.
They are. Yeah.
The number of graduates coming out with a textile degree is dwindling, and I think, like Dawn was saying, really, it's just important to educate them and let them know what jobs are out there. And, you know, I think when digital print started, possibly, you know, jobs like separation artists, people thought, well, we won't need them anymore because we can just print digitally, but it's so not true.
Absolutely.
These jobs are still vital, and there's a gap in the market.
Yeah.
And I don't think that design graduates necessarily know that those jobs are out there, and that they could be a digital print operator or a colourist.
Yeah,
or,
exactly. Yeah.
So for me personally, working at AVA, it's really important to get in at the grassroots and help educate. And
such an exciting industry though, isn't it? You know, I mean, the skill involved, you know, you go back to coder tracing and colour separation artists and stuff, you know, the skill, a computer, a printer, whatever it is, wherever we are, is just a tool. It's only as good as the person and the knowledge the person and the skill set the person has that's driving that technology, 100%, whatever it is.
Yeah, and that's why you've got to invest in your people, and why it's still really important to all work together, I think. It's,
teamwork.
More teamwork makes the dream work.
Oh, I like that one. We can end there.
There is no I in team.
I wrote that recently as well, There is no I in team. Okay, brilliant. Well, that's kind of, we've concluded there really on our questions. We've run over it, I'm so sorry, but that happens all the time. Anybody have any questions for anybody on the panel? No? All very quiet? No? Learning team at the back, any questions?
Is the trapeze similar to UV then? Is it being set on top?
No,
I need to understand that.
No, because UV is a completely different technology that is used more in signage. Where you have where trapeze is a pigment ink.
Yeah.
So it's a different technology.
Okay. Yeah, just with you mentioning it sits on the top, so when you transfer it, it'll be on top
Yeah.
of the materials. So that's what I'm trying to get at. So you'll be able
Well,
to
yeah,
do
you know,
textures and things, or-
if you would look at a print from UV on a vinyl,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
sits on top also.
Yeah,
So in
yeah.
that way, but you will not print on a textile. So that would be the difference.
Okay, all right. Well, if everybody's happy, we'll have a break, a short break for 15 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll dive into kind of more kind of one-to-one conversations, talk about some of the different technologies with anybody from the team. I want to dive over there, actually, with all those little samples back. Yeah, just some of those material innovation is, so interesting, really, and how we then adapt the print industry to that material innovation to create the inks of the future.
Yeah,
There's
that's what
so
I was
much to
telling
happen.
Mitesh. I says I need some of your materials to create
Yeah.
my application kits that I'm going to be sending out, where
More,
people
see?
would get that feeling and touching and
Yeah.
things.
That's
Oh,
so
this is great
important.
material.
I'm like that. When that Shine, what's it called? Shine. If you've ever ordered anything from Shine, the fashion,
Mhm.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
and it looks great, and when you get the material, it's just
Yeah.
awful. I need to go to H&M and feel the fabrics and very touchy feely.
But I think that is also one of our biggest challenge,
Yeah.
because young people, I have daughters. They order so much easy there. It's like nothing. It doesn't cost anything. They get it and they say, "Oh, this is not really nice," and they send it back.
Yeah.
And quality-wise, Temu, huge company, 10 million packages a day to the US only.
It's scary, isn't it?
It
The
is,
scale,
it
the
is.
scale's really scary, and how, collectively we can all make change, but
Yeah.
we have to steer some of those huge juggernauts, move the needle, change the business model
Yeah.
really away from, away from having this huge 40% within the margin, which is for waste. So they never, if something doesn't sell, they don't lose money. They've got 40% in it already to put it towards all of that. So it makes no sense. We have to work more collaboratively, I believe, across the entire supply chain, because we were talking about before who's taking the bullet here, and I think on sustainability, so often it's the manufacturer, and historically has always been the manufacturer that takes the bullet whenever a market swings. But now I think the fashion industry has, on the whole, has a huge responsibility to change buying behaviour and impart more trust, more collaboration within the supply chain, and then we'll move that needle, and then we'll also move that needle of digital production as well, because you can automatically shift it further to closer to onshore. We were talking earlier about your requirement to bring things in more quickly, but you don't want to air freight them, because you guys are doing everything you possibly can to work as green, be environmentally friendly, as circular as possible, and then you shoot yourself by having to air freight it because your customer wants it in 2 weeks' time, and there's no other way to do it. You have to have a core hub, I think, of people and companies that will spring up smart hubs across Europe and throughout the UK, or as other companies here have done, bring print home, get vertical, get closer to your customer, and bring really strong brands. I mean, the two great brands in the room here today, to survive over 100 years or even 68 years is a huge achievement in volatile. If you think about the textile industry and wow, what's happened to the textile industry just in the UK in the last 20 years, it's an incredible accomplishment to pivot your brand and to remain innovative and to keep close to your consumer and grow is a huge achievement. It really is. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Yep. Any questions privately, give us a shout. Yep. Does anybody want to say anything from the Mimaki team before we finish? Oh, Brett, come here, have a microphone. There we go. Hybrid team, I should have said. There we go.
Hello folks, I'm Brett, I'm the MD here. I have been in what I would say the visual communications industry, i.e. putting ink onto something for around 30 years. And I was lucky enough to be at the very beginning when things went digital, and seeing these machines coming in. And I just want to put my 2 pennies in about what the future holds. Because we heard Marc talk about machines and different sizes and feeds and speeds. But for me, I think the future is about the ink technology. I think it's about the thing that the printer's jet. The ink is a key part of what we do in the industry. Yes, it goes through the printer. The software controls it. And it lands onto the fabric. But actually, we've not talked about the ink during this conversation. And the ink's key, and the different of ink technologies, whether it's pigment, whether it's reactive, whether it's acid, whatever it may be. And everybody, I think, is chasing the holy grail of an ink that is one ink that will go on to multiple different types of fabrics and textiles and vinyls and anything. And I think that chase for the Holy Grail is about where Mimaki and other manufacturers are spending their R&D dollars is on the ink technology. And what I think we'll see in the years to come is a change in ink technology and the acceptance that the ink technology's got to change in order to move that acceptance of that sub 10% in textile printing to make it grow. Because whilst the technology we have right now is great, it's phenomenal, you're all using it, you all love it, to make that quantum leap for digital to become the norm in the industry, it's around the ink for me. And I think that's what we'll see in the next 5 years, a change in ink technology that will drive digital forward in the industry.
I totally agree with you. Absolutely, totally agree. There's a lot to happen on ink, and then a lot to happen with that ink and those materials and how we all use it and utilise it. It was great. Thank you, Brett. Thank you very much.